Mary Spencer has been a culinary instructor for over 20 years. Her professional cooking career began when she donated charitable auction dinners and cooking classes to the downtown Detroit YMCA and the Northville Parks and Recreation. These dinners were a tremendous success and encouraged Mary to become a professional culinary instructor. By way of background, Mary learned to cook from attending some 200 cooking seminars from acclaimed chefs, including Jacques Pepin, Milos Chikla, Nicholas Malgiri. She has taught cooking classes at a number of Metro Detroit cooking equipment stores, including Kitchen Glamour, Kitchen Witch, Scotty's Kitchen, and ABC Warehouse. She is presently the owner of Taste, a Cook's Place, LLC, a cooking school and Cook's Resource Center situated in Plymouth, Michigan. Mary has also conducted numerous classes for corporations, service organizations, and individuals. She has been a guest lecturer at the U of M Sociology Department and Michigan State University. Her class repertoire includes over 1,000 class-tested cooking presentations covering a wide range of topics. Her personal library holds over 5,500 cookbooks. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everyone, for coming into my kitchen tonight. And I don't know, can you believe that we're talking Christmas already? I mean, it just seems so crazy. So, but our topic tonight is gifts from your kitchen, holiday gifts from your kitchen. And honestly, these are things that you can make all year round and give it to people, as a gift or whatever. I always feel that if it's something that's a little handmade, it's even a little more special of a gift. And gone are the days when everybody brought a fruitcake. You make a fruitcake back in September, you bring the thing, and sometimes it's just not really the greatest gift. But I do have a really good fruitcake recipe that I do make. But that's something that you got to make way ahead of time because you got to let it soak and all that stuff. I'm going to do 3 recipes tonight that are a little bit easier. If you are going to, you think to yourself the week of Christmas, I need a few extra gifts. These are absolutely perfect to whip up and give to your family or your friends or the teachers or whatever you want to do. It's a perfect way to kind of share the holidays. So 3 things I'm going to do tonight. One is called peppermint bark with a twist, and I know a lot of you maybe have had peppermint bark. Really pricey at the stores, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a different way to make this, a little bit of a different version, and everybody that has ever had it really loves it. It's just different. I'm going to do some salted caramel sauce. Caramel can be a little tricky, so we're going to do a salted caramel sauce and show you how to make that. And then we're going to do a very simple Irish cream liqueur, which I just think, that's kind of something that you can wrap it up in a little bottle. You can make a whole bunch of it, divide it into bigger bottles or little bottles, and then maybe give a couple little glasses to go with it in a little basket. I think they're easy. It's really great gifts. And again, these can be made the week of the holidays, so you don't have to start way ahead. Although you could make them now. So I think the first thing I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about caramel. So we're going to do some salted caramel. And when I'm doing salted caramel, I want to get a really clean, I want to make sure there's no oil on my sauce pot because that can wreak havoc with your sugar when you're making a caramel. So what I have in my pot as of the moment, I have some sugar, just a cup of plain sugar. Nothing, no big deal. Your recipe, there's several ways that you can make a caramel. One of the kind of the more classic ways of making a caramel is just to melt the sugar on the stovetop. It's a good way to make it, but it's a little temperamental. And the reason it's temperamental is because sometimes if you have your heat on too high, sugar starts to burn instead of melt. So I opt for the second version of how to make a caramel. And I didn't put this in your recipe, but so you can kind of jot down right underneath sugar, 1/4 cup of water. Okay, so I have a cup of sugar. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of water to the sugar. And then just put this I'm just going to swirl it for 1 second to make sure all that sugar gets wet. And I think you can kind of see that in the pot. Then I'm going to put this on top of my stove. I'm going to light the burner, and it's going to be, I'm going to say on kind of a little bit of a higher than a medium heat. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful with caramels, after it starts to cook, and basically what's going to happen here is that the sugar the water in the caramel that I added to the caramel is going to evaporate. So as soon as this starts to come to a boil, the water eventually will evaporate. You're going to be left with nothing but sugar, and the sugar will melt, okay, in the water. So it kind of pushes your caramel making a little bit of farther ahead than if you did it using straight sugar. If you did straight sugar, you'd have to have it on kind of low. You have to let it melt really slowly. And I honestly, I don't know, somebody can correct me, but in the years that I have been making caramel, and I make it all the time, I have never seen like a difference in flavor or in consistency when I add water to it. So for me, adding the water to it is just a little bit simpler than doing straight sugar. So now this is going to come to a boil. And one of the things that happens sometimes when you're melting sugar in a pot like this is that the sugar has a tendency to once it melts, it wants to recrystallize. The molecules of sugar grasp onto other molecules of sugar, and they start to transform back into a solid state. So that can drive you crazy, guys. And there's a few ways that you can solve that problem. One of the ways is to, if you have a cup of water and like a basting brush, like a little, paintbrush, clean paintbrush, you can kind of, as your sugar is melting, you can dip that brush into water, and then just kind of on the side of your pot, just like this, I would take that brush and I would just push those crystals back down, because they have a tendency to want to climb the sides of your pot. Okay, so you can do that. Sometimes that doesn't work as well because it could get away from you. Those sugar crystals can go up there and say, "Hey, I'm attaching myself." If you've ever had sugar recrystallize itself, it is really nasty. It's really, really hard, and it's almost impossible to melt again. So one of the things that I like to do is introduce an acid. So if you introduce an acid into your melting sugar, you will pretty much take away the possibility of it recrystallizing. Several ways you could do that. One of them is to add just a little bit of lemon juice. Lemon juice works perfectly. What I tend to do, because I do it all the time, is I add a little bit of cream of tartar. And so what I'm going to do, and I say a pinch, and this is like an old fashioned, your mother's pinch, just basically a little bit in the palm of your hand, and that's going to go into my pot of sugar. Okay, and what that is going to do, because it's just an acid, I'm going to put just a touch more because I'm kind of paranoid that it's not going to listen to me, but it will. I've never had a problem with it. Just a tiny bit. And basically, what is cream of tartar? Cream of tartar is an acid that develops at the bottom of wine barrels as wine is aging in barrels. So once they drain the wine out of the wine barrels, you get what's called tartaric acid. And this is what cream of tartar is. And it turns white, and it has this like powdery feel to it. And this is what you would add typically to making when you make a meringue, and it stabilizes your meringue and allows you to get a fluffier meringue. So stuff like that. So, to your egg whites, and it kind of makes those stable so that you can fluff them up a lot more. So cream of tartar, lemon juice, those are citric acid. If you have citric acid in the house, just a very tiny pinch. You don't want to taste it in the caramel. You just want to prevent the crystals from forming. Okay, so for me, that is one of the most important things about making a caramel, is to prevent that. But if you put a little tiny bit of this or a little bit of lemon juice, you should have not a problem whatsoever. The other thing that I'm going to do, and it kind of lends itself to the fact that if I start stirring this, or if I take my pot and I start swirling it, it's going to kind of make those little molecules of sugar try to escape, because you're pushing it around in the pot and it's trying to climb up the side of the pot. I'm not going to touch this. So as this is cooking, I don't swirl it, I don't stir it, I do absolutely nothing to it. I'm going to wait at this point until that sugar or that water that was in there evaporates. That sugar will start to melt. At a certain point, I can turn this down just a little bit. And you have to keep an eye on this. You definitely have to keep an eye on this. When I see that I can kind of see a little amber look to the sugar. That's when the caramel is starting to form on your sugar. So that's when you kind of want to make sure that you really keep an eye on it, because as it starts to caramelize or get brown in color, that will go kind of fast. And you don't want it, there's a real fine line between caramelized and burned. So you don't want to burn your sugar, you want to caramelize it, okay? So again, I'm not going to touch it, I'm not going to swirl it, nothing. So we're going to keep an eye on it though, so it's right here by me. Hopefully I will not forget. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start working on our peppermint bark with a twist. So I have peppermint bark is typically just melted white chocolate, typically with some peppermint chips inside of it, or maybe on the top of it. Sometimes it has a swirl of maybe chocolate that they swirl through it. This is a little different. This is a take on Rice Krispie treats. And what I love about this, it's not quite as sweet as typical peppermint bark. So if you're somebody who is not a tremendous sweet lover, this is a really great recipe to try. So what I have is just plain old Rice Krispies, okay? And I put these in a bowl, just regular Rice Krispies out of the box. And then what I have here is what's called almond bark, okay? Just like making caramel and just like working with sugar when you're making caramel, white chocolate can be very temperamental. White chocolate sometimes does not want to melt for you. It wants to kind of stay in a solid state, and it will, before it melts, it'll start burning on you. It's like says, I'm not going to let you melt me. I'm going to, I'd rather burn than let you, get me into a liquid state. So one of the things that we get, and this is a really great baking trick, is something called almond bark. Okay, so this is almond bark, and it comes typically in a big bar like this, and it's about a pound bar. But this is a little different. They split this up into cubes. So when I look at this almond bark, and what is almond bark? Almond bark has a little oil added to it because that allows for that white chocolate to melt a little bit better than it would if you didn't, if you just tried to melt pure white chocolate. So it has a little oil in it. It's got some milk in it, and then it's got the white chocolate, but it comes like this. So it looks like a giant chunk of white chocolate, okay? And you can either melt it in a saucepan, if you've got a little double boiler action going. And I remember in my mother's kitchen, she had a double boiler. So it was basically a pot that was bigger than a pot that kind of fit on the inside of it. In the bigger part on the bottom, you would put water and you would bring it to a boil. And then the pot on top would be whatever it is you wanted to melt. And it was a way to keep that stuff that you're trying to melt or you're trying to keep warm. You could make sauces in a double boiler. You can melt chocolate in it. But it kind of keeps it more insulated so that you're not putting it over direct heat. So if you don't want to go the whole double boiler effect, you can absolutely use your microwave oven. Your microwave oven is perfect for melting all kinds of chocolate. And I did this in the microwave. Basically, what I do is I start with 1 minute, and then after 1 minute, I pull this out. I mix that together a little bit, and then if it still isn't completely melted, it honestly depends on how warm that chocolate has been when it was in the microwave. If it's a little warmer, you can just stir those unmelted chunks in the warm melted chocolate and they'll melt, or throw it back in for another 10 seconds, pull it out, see if it's ready to go at that point. Okay, so you have a few options there on how to handle that. Kind of keeping an eye on my caramel. And right now, the sugar has melted. I'm going to show it to you without trying to disturb it too much. But the sugar has melted. So right now, it is a pretty much just, sugar that is really, really hot. It's, going to be, once it melts to the point where you want it to be a caramel, it's going to be about 250 degrees, 260. So this is not the time to be, letting the cats walk around the kitchen or the dogs or the baby bothering you. When you're making something like caramel or something, just make sure that you're safe, everything, because this is super, super hot. So this is melting nicely. I have turned my heat down just a touch because I don't want it to burn too fast. Now, so for my almond bark, I have my melted white chocolate here, my almond bark here, and we're just going to pour that right into my Rice Krispies. All right, and that goes all in. And honestly, guys, you can make how much of this you want. If you don't want to make a big pan of it, you really don't have to. You can make a smaller pan. I'm making a little bit of a smaller batch just because, you know, we don't need all those sweets in the house. And I'm not going to give this to anybody right now. So it will be for us. But basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a sheet pan. This is a quarter sheet pan. So now I'm looking at my caramel. And my caramel is actually starting to get a little amber in color. I'm going to turn the heat down just a touch. I don't want it, again, sometimes you get hot spots in your pot and you might see it start getting really amber color in one little part of it. Turn the heat down. And now at this point, now that this has boiled, I can swirl it a little bit, but I still don't want to like super stir it and go crazy with it, okay? So now I have a little sheet pan back to our peppermint bark with a twist. I have a sheet pan. I'm just going to spray it with a little bit of, baking spray. You can use whatever kinds you want. If you want to use like a Pam or kind of whatever type you want, guys, works well for, for those purposes. So I'm going to make sure those Rice Krispies get coated with all of that chocolate. And then I'm going to dump it onto my pan. I make this at the holidays all the time. Everybody loves it. My family loves it. And that's a big, big thing. If your family likes something, then that's good. I am taking a look at my caramel because at this point it is starting to caramelize more. You can probably see it's getting a little browner. All right. I want it to get to be the color of, I don't know, like the color of just before it, like maybe a lighter shade of cinnamon. Okay. That's kind of how I want it to be. So you got to be really careful with it. Keep an eye on it, guys. Because like I said, at this point, it will start to go really, really quickly. Okay. So here's my caramel again. If you can see that. Can you guys see? Denise, can you guys see that? Okay, cool. So now at this point, you can tell that it's starting to get, it's really thick at this point. So now I'm going to put this back on the heat. We're going to come back to our peppermint bark in a second. Want to finish with this because I don't want to burn my caramel at this point. And now this is getting to the point where it is a nice brown kind of caramely color. Use a non-stick. Now, don't use like a black bottom pot. It's really hard to tell the color of your caramel if you're doing it in a pot that's got a dark color on the inside of it. I have some butter here. We're going to add butter to our caramel. Again, be really careful because, again, it's really hot. You're going to add something that might be at room temperature or whatever. You want that butter to melt, but you don't want to scald yourself with that. So we're going to melt our butter in here. Just kind of stir that for a second. The next thing I'm going to do is kind of stir that for a second. Now I'm going to pour some heavy cream in here. And I'm going to be really careful when I pour that heavy cream in here because the cream is cold. When I pour something cold into a really hot sugary caramel, it could start to kind of bubble up really fast. So you want to make sure you do this kind of slow at first. All right. You're going to stir it. You're going to hear it like almost like a volcano. Pour the rest of my milk. And here's the fun part. This is where you can start flavoring it. I have a little bit of vanilla. We're going to add a tiny bit of vanilla to this. And then I'm going to add some salt because I want this to be a salted caramel. If you don't have to use salt. Just, do it the way it is, okay? So we're going to add a pinch of salt to this and then stir that in and then turn our heat off, okay? So at this point, we have a beautiful caramel sauce. I don't know if you guys can kind of see that. Really gorgeous, velvety. You don't want any lumps in here. You don't want any, big pieces of any unmelted sugar. If you do have, just kind of keep this on low heat. Once you've added the cream, sometimes the caramel has a tendency to kind of seize up a little bit and will become like almost solid and get real thick. If that happens, just put it back on the heat for a couple seconds and it will melt for you and you should be absolutely fine. So just, don't put it on super boiling, but put it on a little bit of a heat. So I'm going to leave this to kind of cool because then we can package it, okay? But I'm going to take my my peppermint bark, and I'm gonna just press this into my pan. And I may only have enough for a quarter of this pan, so we'll see how this goes. I haven't made this small amount before, guys. I usually make a really big pan of it. So, but you know, you like I said, you can do whatever you want. I like them a little thicker. So anytime I make this, I like to add, you know, a little bit of extra Rice Krispies, and you know, you can add a little extra white chocolate as well. Really doesn't matter. I'm using this parchment because it won't stick to your hands, okay? So it makes it a little bit easier to press. And if you've ever made Rice Krispies treats, it's really, really, you know, you want to make sure that all this doesn't get stuck on your hands. Of course, we're not using marshmallows here. We're using chocolate. So, but again, that could happen as well. So I'm just kind of trying to get this nice and even in my pan. All right. And then what we're going to do is we have to bring that peppermint element in here. And the way that I'm going to do that, you can do one of two things. You can buy peppermint candies. Just going to kind of squeeze this together a little bit. Make this a little more even. All right, so there is our peppermint bark. And I'm going to take some crushed peppermint. I used to buy peppermint candies, you know, in the cellophane. I used to unwrap them all. I put them in a Ziploc bag, put them on my counter, take a little mallet and start hitting them. And, you know, it still was a mess because it would break through the plastic, whatever. So now I discovered that you could go to Home Goods, or even Kroger sells crushed peppermint at the holidays in packages. A little bit easier for you to do it like that. I'm going to sprinkle my crushed peppermint right on top. And I'm going to kind of press this in a little bit, okay? And I'm going to use my paper that I tossed prematurely because I want you kind of make sure that peppermint sticks to the top of my peppermint bark, okay? But I like to put a lot on here because after all, it is supposed to be peppermint bark. All right, so I just put that on like that. And then press that in. You know, if you didn't get some spots that you need to kind of fill that in a little bit. All right, so you can do either one. Buy those candies, you know, and just kind of press how many you need. This will last if you keep this in a container covered, you know, really tightly. It'll last for a long time, so you don't have to worry about this going bad. But it's kind of good to eat the way it is too. So, you know, you could do one or the other, guys. It doesn't really matter, okay? So there is my peppermint bark, and at this point, I could take this. Usually it takes a while to cool, but this is because I'm making a smaller batch. I'm going to trim that uneven area. That's for the cook to eat. Okay, so that you get those pieces there. And then really depending on how big of a piece you want to give to people. And, you know, you could even make them thicker than this, guys. You can make them way thicker than this. So however you wanted to do it. And then I have these little cellophane packages. So, you know, one of the things about doing these holiday gifts is the way that you wrap them and give them to people. So I bought these off of Amazon a while ago. These are just little cellophane, self-sealing little packages, which are really, really nice. I can put 2 pieces in here, you know, and give them as individual little gifts or whatever. And, you know, and then maybe even put a little tie around the top of it. But these are really, really tasty. Mine just broke apart, but we'll do another piece here to show you guys. All right, there you go. Really super white chocolatey. If you're a white chocolate fan, really good. And honestly, you could do this with dark chocolate too. They sell dark chocolate bark as well. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to melt dark chocolate, but they sell that as well. So it's a nice little thing to have. But these little bags actually have a little, I probably won't be able to find it because I am absolutely blind without my reading glasses, although here it goes. And I'm just going to kind of seal that shut just like this. And you have little packages. You know, you could put little Christmassy stamps. One of the places that I like to go for all of these little kind of afterthought things, like how to package this stuff, is I love to go to the dollar store. You know, the dollar store has a ton of different ideas for wrapping. They have different ribbons and different little bags and different containers. So, you know, you could make like a little thing of the liquor we're going to make. You could make some caramel sauce, put it in a little jar. They have little jars that you can pour that in, and then put it in a little box and give everybody a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? So that it is a little bit more of a kind of like a little bit of a bigger gift. But I love this. This, you guys have to try the peppermint bark, whether you give it away or not. It is really good, really tasty. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do this. How to do this Irish cream liqueur. And the Irish liqueur, well, and it's basically like, so what do we talk about when we talk about Irish cream liqueur? We're talking about essentially a Bailey's Irish cream. It's, that's kind of what the, this is a generic version, but what the, name version would be Bailey's, but we're not going to say that because it really isn't. We're going to use something else. And I'm not going to buy a really, really expensive Irish whiskey for this, because it's got a lot of other ingredients in it. So I'm going to make sure that I buy something a little bit middle of the road. And this is called Dempsey's. And I just, I went to the grocery store. I looked, you can buy Jameson, which is really expensive. It can be really pricey. It's a really good Irish whiskey. But honestly, you don't need that for what we're doing here, because we're not looking for the beautiful, pure flavor of the whiskey. We're looking for it to be blended with other ingredients. So in that case, I'm not so worried about it, being a really high quality Irish whiskey. Okay. So we're going to start here. I have my blender jar. We're going to throw that down here. I'm going to double this recipe because this is going to be kind of my batch for the holidays, guys. I figured I'm making it. I got my whiskey here. We're going to use sweetened condensed milk to start with. It's kind of one of those ingredients that really has a good flavor. It makes things really sweet. It's just a nice taste. Okay. And, you could use, everybody uses this for baking. You could do dulce de leche if you wanted to, which is really nice as well. I got that everywhere. So we're going to get sticky here in a minute. All right. I'm going to do another can of this. All right. Throw that in. And the next ingredient I'm going to use is chocolate syrup. And that's going to give it that kind of hint of chocolatiness that you get from Bailey's, which is really nice. So I've got that coming up. Some regular chocolate syrup. All right. And I'm going to do, doubling this. So I'm going to do 4 tablespoons. Just Hershey's chocolate syrup. 2, 3. You like it a little more chocolatey, add more chocolate. I mean, nobody says this has to be exactly the way this is to your taste, guys. If you like it chocolatier, make it a little chocolatier. It's not a problem, okay? So we're going to put that aside. I then have my chocolate, my Irish whiskey. We're going to throw that in. The other fun thing is if you look on the internet, oh my gosh, there are a ton of different recipes that you can do for like homemade liqueurs, which are really, really fun. And they all work really well. So you could do like, it doesn't have to be like an Irish cream. I have done Kahlua. There's other different kinds that you can do, like mixes. You can do different kinds of mixes of things. The sky's the limit. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can utilize liqueurs. People like liqueurs at the holidays. It's kind of a special time. It's a celebratory time. So it's a nice time to kind of do that. I have some vanilla, and vanilla is important because you want it to have that vanilla flavor. All right. I'm going to add to this some coffee, and this is just some instant coffee. I always have instant coffee at home. I'm an instant coffee fan. My mother, when we were little, used to give us instant coffee. So unless I go to a coffee shop, this is what I have at home for coffee in the morning, guys. So it is what it is. It's what I'm used to. I'm going to throw in some instant coffee here. All right. And this is going to go on my blender, and we're going to blend this. And I want to blend this until I don't see the coffee crystals anymore. So we're going to blend this. Start it off slow because I want to make sure that this doesn't explode on me. Kind of like with your your little pusher stick here, you can kind of, there's a little chocolate on the side. You can kind of fix that a little bit. Okay, then we're going to add to this my whipping cream. All right, so I'll just kind of set that off to the side so I don't make a huge mess. I have my whipping cream here, and then I had about a little over a cup here. I'm going to add just a little bit more, and that's going to give you the creaminess. So you want to make sure that you do have, I have tried this with half and half actually. It really isn't that bad with half and half. I do like, this is the holidays. I think, you need to splurge. So just, whipping cream is not, you're only having a little tiny bit and it's mixed in here with so many other ingredients. I think you should be absolutely good to go. Then I have an ingredient called Coco Lopez. And this is, a lot of recipes will call for coconut milk and they will always say not sweetened coconut milk. And that's what this is. This is Coco Lopez, which is a sweetened coconut milk. And when you open this, it will have a hard shell on top. So make sure that you poke through that shell and kind of give it a good stir and then add this to this. So this is going to be about 2 tablespoons of this. And then you're going to have some of this left over. So you can put this in another, don't leave this in this container, put it in another container, throw it in your fridge. You can make some pina coladas for the holidays, some, really, really delicious mixed drinks are really nice. Okay. So we're going to throw this back. I think I did add my vanilla. And I want to make sure, guys, I don't want to forget anything. And I'm going to turn this down a little bit. You could probably mix this all together like in a bowl with a whisk. But I like it like this because I know that I'm getting it really, really blended, okay? So we're going to take our lid off of this. I think that's all of my ingredients. And then what I like to do, and I thought that I had a nice, you can get even, I think at the dollar store, don't mark my words, but pretty much sure that you can get like a nice glass bottle with a flip top on it and pour these into those bottles. Or again, if you're doing it for yourself, pour bigger bottles. If you're doing it for a gift, get some little bottles. And I know they sell little bottles like that with a little screw top, even a little cork works. But the thing you want to do with this is to make sure, just make sure that you make this at least, I'd say a couple weeks ahead of time, just so that those flavors have a chance to kind of meld together and blend. Instead of pouring this in a glass, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this in a giant mason jar. And what I like sometimes, and I didn't find one, but I wanted to get one, is with a spigot on it. So that way when it's Christmas and, your guests are here, you would just pour that in there and you could just, have them use the spigot. But, that's if you're keeping it for yourself, guys. But this is quite a bit in here. Okay, really, really good. Really tasty. So that is our Irish cream liqueur. The other thing I have made in the past, and you could do this at earlier than the holidays. Like I would say, you could do this in September. You could do this in October. I have made 2 other things that were really phenomenal. One was I take cherries, and you could use frozen cherries. You could use sour cherries or sweet, and then I just take the cherries and I put them in a jar like this, exactly like this. I put enough sugar to cover the cherries, and then I let them sit for about 2 weeks. Every other day, I will take that jar and I will flip it so that the sugar covers the cherry, kind of mixes it, and then I keep flipping it, every other day. Then when you see that the cherries, it gets really a lot of liquid in there, you could add some vodka to that. And then you've got a really beautiful, almost like a cherry brandy, which is really delicious. The other thing I did last year, oh my gosh, I just thought of this right now, guys, but I want to pass it on to you. It is a Polish holiday, kind of a punch thing, but it's a liqueur that almost tastes like a brandy. And I made it last year and I still have some this year. It'll last absolutely forever because if it's pure alcohol, unlike this has to be refrigerated. But if it's something that's pure alcohol, you could keep it out on your counter. And I threw in fresh oranges, fresh lemons, cinnamon sticks, anise, star anise, nutmeg. I threw in so many different wonderful spices in there. And then about 2 months later, we tried it. Oh my God. It is like it's citrusy, but yet it's sweet. There's sugar in there. It's sweet. And then it has all those beautiful spices. And it is really delicious. And especially around the holiday, you can pour that in some tea or just drink it like that on ice. It's really, really good. So yeah, but that's a Polish thing. So if you guys are looking for the recipe for that, after I've told you about it, you can ask Denise or email me or whatever, and I can get that recipe to you guys as well. Okay. So there is our Irish cream liqueur. I love doing things like this because it's just fun to be able to make that, you know, and it tastes really good and kind of you know, resembles the real thing in the long run. So for our caramel, now we have our caramel sauce. I want to make sure this isn't hot. And I am just going to kind of stir this. You guys can see this is beautiful right now. If you let this sit for a long time, like out in the open, what's going to happen? It will develop like a skin on the top, like a, you know, like sometimes when you do a custard and you end up with kind of that little skin on the top of it. So what you want to do is before you bottle this or whatever, you want to just give it a good stir. If it really starts to thicken up on you a lot, you can put it back on the heat for a minute to kind of liquefy a little bit more, and it'll be easier for you to package. Again, you could get little jars. I have this little old lady, and I swear to God, she is such a beautiful soul. She calls me, or used to call me once a year, and used to tell me, I have a whole bunch of Bum Mama jelly jars. Would you like them? And I would never say no, because I make my own horseradish at Easter, and I would package that in this. And I make, you know, caramel sauce, anything. It's a beautiful jar, and it has a beautiful lid. This isn't something that you can use for canning. Like I wouldn't put it in a canner to like preserve pickles or anything like that. But if it's something that you want to refrigerate, or like a liqueur, you could put some of that liqueur in there and give it away. But it works beautiful as a holiday kind of gift item here. Okay, so we're gonna pour that caramel in here. Look at how beautiful that is. That would cost you a lot, guys, for a jar of that. And this is basically a cup of sugar and a cup of cream and a few tablespoons of, butter. It's not a big deal, you know, and they're easy to make. You saw how easy this is to make. Just, you know, remember those little tricks, especially about the caramel, because I don't want you guys to fail and then blame me. It's, you know, those are things that I have through the years learned how to cope with making caramel. And then once you cope with it and you figure it out, it works beautifully. So we've got our beautiful little peppermint twist with a peppermint bark with a twist. And then I have my giant jar of liquor. Probably more than I need. But you know what I mean? I don't think anybody was going to drink the whiskey. So I think it'd be better if we drank that. And this you could refrigerate. You would want to refrigerate. You want to refrigerate this. You don't want to keep this refrigerated because the candies will get soft if you keep them in the refrigerator from condensation. The bark, if you don't put the candies on top, the Rice Krispies and the chocolate will solidify and they will get nice and hard on you. So if you want to make a big batch of it and you want to wait to put the candies on, you can keep the bark in the fridge and put the candies in later. But you'd have to really press them in because at that point now they're kind of dry. So you just have to kind of use a little more effort to push them on. So there is our gifts from your kitchen, and I just love them because I think they're super easy. Like I said, you know, before, you know, fruitcake was the thing, and nobody liked fruitcake, guys. But you know, and you'd have to make it 3 or 4 months in advance. So gosh, this is so much easier to do. So any questions, anybody?
If you have questions, go ahead and unmute yourself.
If anybody has any questions on this or anything else, there's other food gifts you can do. I have done toffee, which is a really nice one because you can package it kind of like this as well, and it works really nicely. I've done like candied orange peels. So basically super easy. I kind of like, I don't even want to show you how because it's so easy. You make a simple sugar syrup. You peel orange peels, make sure that you don't get the white part on them. And then I have done orange, lemon, lime, grapefruit peels. And then you put them in that simple syrup and let them soak for about, let them boil in that simple syrup for maybe about 5 or 8 minutes. Then let them drain. I roll them in sugar. And then they're candy, but they're so good, you know, and you can package those like this as well. So that works beautifully. So yeah, really, those are super simple as well to make, and they can be made well in advance.
Do you have an easy recipe for the toffee?
I do, yes. If somebody wants it, I'll share it with them. Let me know.
Me.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, it's a chocolate pecan toffee. And essentially when you're making a toffee, you're essentially doing the same thing I did with a caramel. You're making a caramel, but you're adding you're boiling butter with the caramel. So you get a lot of butter in there. And then you add water to it. And then once that's done, you pour it on a sheet pan and then you let it cool a little bit. You put chocolate on it, pecans, whatever. You don't have to put the pecans, but I like the chocolate. I think it really makes a difference. Let it cool and then crack it into pieces. It works beautifully. I've been making that for years too. It's a super easy thing. Everybody likes cookies too, but I think sometimes candies are, people forget about making like candies and these other kind of sweets, and they're just so easy to do.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think
Any other questions?
everybody's just saying this is great, and they're saying please share that recipe, the one I just asked you for. Somebody else just wants the recipe, so
I'll send it to you, Denise.
yeah, send it to me, and then Jim, I will see that we get it on the website. My website girl is out of town right now, but we'll get it on the website next week. Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds
All right.
good.
Anybody else have
Absolutely.
anything else they want to say? Everyone's just saying it was wonderful. They had a good time. It was a fun program tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Denise, for having me. I appreciate it. I want to
Oh,
wish
as
everybody a
always.
happy holiday. I believe I'm saying that. Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah. Thanksgiving, Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, we're in the thick of it right now. So yeah.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you very much. And we will see Mary again in February. She's going to do a program about soups.
Absolutely. Nice warming soups for the winter.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you. If you guys don't have any more questions. Oh, wait, hold on. Diane would like you also to give me the Polish liqueur.
I will. Absolutely. I'll send that off to you. Yes.
Okay.
Love
All right.
that recipe. Oh my God.
We'll put that one up too.
That one, if you're going to make the Polish one, you need to make it now because you need to steep it for at least a month before you drink it. Because if you make it right before Christmas and try to use it, you're not going to get all those flavors. You got to let it steep a little bit longer. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Great. All right. Thank you.